sure that we do that so it does not enter into our lives. So where do we go from there? What do we do after we say, evil, you're not welcome anymore? Well, let's look. I don't have time for this. Most of us, all of us, have said this before, or thought it at least, when something came into our life that maybe was bothering us, didn't go right for us. We were looking for something different. And we thought, I don't have time for this. I'm too busy doing other things. People are funny when it comes to time. We're always short of time, never having enough to get the important things done, right? But they can watch TV day and night. They can Facebook for hours on end. They can bicycle until their hearts are tired. So I guess you could say I'm willing to pick on anybody here today, right? For those of you who know me and the bicycling that I do, right? This, of course, is not a complete list. If I didn't get you, it's okay, because I was making you think about how you've been wasting time. I heard on the news this week that in San Antonio, people spend about 30 hours a year sitting in traffic. I don't have time for that. I hate it. Many live life like their time is infinite. We got all the time in the world. I'm in no rush. I'm just going to take it a moment at a time. Well, time is infinite, but not in this body. The truth is, God made time for this body. Time was created for the body that you are in. So, what is time? Think about it. How do we measure time? By the rotation of the physical planet, the Earth. That's how we measure time. Where did it come from? Well, Genesis 1:5 says, God called light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning of the first day. So he gave us the idea of a day. Later on, the Egyptians came out with a sundial that measured 12 hours of the day. By night, they used 12 stars to be able to know what time it was. So even the stars in heaven guided us as to the hours of the evening. God gave us time. Once you leave this planet, it's interesting because there is no such thing as time once you leave this planet. Now, we still consider it time because we know that time still progresses in our life. But there's really no time once you leave this planet. So everything exists in time according to who we are in this body. So why am I pointing this out to you? Time is more important to us than most of us realize. Let's look at something Jesus said. Mark 14:7. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish to do them good, but me you do not have always. Now, what is Jesus really saying there? I mean, we know we have Jesus always, right? Okay? So what is he saying, telling us? He's talking about God's work. We see those around him in the scripture where they're asking why this woman was wasting this oil on his body as she poured it on him, instead of selling it and giving it to the poor. In Mark 14:6, Jesus said, let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. We see that she is doing God's work while others were worried about the flesh. So here she has this oil, and she pours it on Jesus. And they're saying, that could have been used for good work. And Jesus is saying, well, it's good to help the poor. But this woman is doing the work of God. So there's a difference between good works and doing God's work. So let's look a little closer. What was Jesus really saying, though? For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish, you may do good. You can always do good. You can find things to do good in your life. He's talking about the time in this body and how we use it. He is talking about the fact that we aren't always going to have him. It's what he was telling the people there, because there was a time frame of when he was going to be present in the body. And that time was short. And there are things to be done in the body. As long as we have an earth, we will have the poor and opportunities to do good in this world. But your time is running out to do God's work. Your time is running out to do God's work. You only have one lifetime to live. So how are you going to live it? Are you spending your time doing the most important things, or what? During the time of Jesus, people worked from the time the sun came up to the time the sun went down. And I actually have done some farming and ranching in my days. I didn't like it. It was too hard. It was a lot of hard work. My cousin was paying me a few nickels to go out and do all kinds of things for him. I worked hard. I was busy. But today we have a 40-hour work week, most of us. And we have more time than we know what to do with, for the most part. Many of us are bored and looking for things to entertain us. What is Jesus going to say to us when we get to heaven? Hey, how about those Cowboys? Maybe the Falcons, right? How was today's episode of, and you name your TV program you like most? Games. The song talking about, I'm tired of playing the game. Well, our lives in America are filled with games. Anybody ever heard of free sale? Well, I keep telling myself it's keeping my brain sharp. And I find myself playing this free sale on the computer. And I'm struggling with it. But it's good for my brain. But it's such a waste. But it's so much fun. But I'm wasting my time. For those of you that are new, that was my wife in the back. So I have a question for you. How much time do you spend praying, reading the Bible, reaching out to those around you? Golly. Don't think that I'm trying to make you feel bad about anything. That's not what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying really to help you focus, to make you think about your life and the time that God has given you, and what are we doing with that time. In Ecclesiastes 3:12, I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is a gift of God to you. This is life. This is the time that God has given you in this body. It's interesting where it says nothing is better for them than to rejoice. Rejoice is to give joy. When we rejoice, we are giving joy to our God. That's why there's nothing better than to rejoice. It's really an interchange between you and God. Back up there. SB of life. It's the Super Bowl of life. I mean, when we come together, we really begin to worship and praise and rejoice. Think of what it does to the team on the field. Think about what it does to God. when he sees us rejoicing. What does joy have to do with time, though? What does joy have to do with time? Let's look at joy before I answer the question, because it really is going to surprise you. Psalm 16:11. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. So as I read that scripture, what it's telling me is God is our source of joy. And the amount of time that we spend with him is the amount of joy that we will receive. Your presence is fullness of joy. How does time and joy come together? It's in his presence. And I would tell you that if you're depressed, you need to be looking for the right kind of joy in your life. It's very easy to be depressed. I mean, just look at what's going on out there. But it's because you're looking in the wrong place. You need to look up and not look down. How you spend your time. John 15:9. As the Father loved me, I also loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love. So here we see the word abide. Jesus is saying it's everything in this relationship. And abide is to stay or to dwell, to hang around. In other words, you're spending time with Jesus himself. Time with the Lord. We should hang out with Jesus. We need to take him everywhere. Why? Because he says, these things I have spoken to you, that my joy may remain in you. You want the joy? You want the joy? Hang out with Jesus. That my joy may remain in you. That your joy may be full. He wants us to be full of joy. He wants us to be able to rejoice and to thank him for all that he's doing for us in our lives. It takes time. It takes relationships. It takes focus. It all comes down to what you focus on in life. Where is your focus? In Luke 4:5, then the devil, taking him, Jesus, up on the high mountain, showed him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. Why? Because he wanted to convince Jesus that he was missing out. He wanted to convince Jesus that he didn't have the world. Look at all the world has to offer. And the devil will do the same thing to you. He often tries to convince us, oh, look what you're missing out on. He wants to get your focus off of what God is doing for you in your life. You're missing out. That's the word of the devil. You don't have to do this or that. You don't have to play the game of the devil. Because when you do, you say, poor me. Poor me. Look what I'm missing out on. That's what the devil wants you to think. The devil will do his best to make you focus on this one moment in time. Right now. How bad do you have it? Look how bad it is. Oh, poor you. Oh, it could be so much better. But he'll focus on the one moment in time at your weakest point so that you forget all the things that God's done for you in your life. All that God has done up to now to bring you to this point. It's interesting when you think about faith, faith is things unseen. So we begin to look at where we are in life and get depressed because we don't have the faith to believe God's going to come in and answer. That's what the devil wants to do, to destroy your faith. Look how bad it is right now. He also wants you to believe that this moment